Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here and to have the opportunity to present what we are doing in France. I'm Nicolas Laisné. I'm a French architect. My office was founded 12 years ago in Paris, and we are now 30 collaborators working in Montreuil. It's a small city just outside of Paris. We are designing housings, offices, and public buildings. And what happened 5 years ago is that we were commissioned for a 6-story high office building made of wood. It was the commission. And we had done few houses in wood before, but not such a big project. And in France now, things are really going fast for timber construction. And in our office now, we have, let's say, 80% of our projects are made of wood because of this first project. And then we went further and further. So I'm going to show you some projects we are designing now. Some are already done. Other ones we are designing them. And I wanted to show them there are offices building and 2 big housing buildings. We try in our architecture to make buildings very expressive and a lot of outside spaces. And when we began to do project in wood, we thought, a lot of wooden projects are very simple in their shapes because, of course, it's easier to build. But our point of view is that our buildings have to follow the new uses and the new way of life. And for example, in France, we construct more and more dense cities which are close to the circulation, close to the subway stations, railway stations, etc. And people need a lot of outside spaces in these dense cities. And also for wooden office building. So that's the first one we are designing now in the north of Paris, a northern suburb, which is called Saint-Denis. It's a 85,000 square feet building, 8-story high, and it's going to be done with CLT and glue-lamed column. We think that nowadays the way of working has changed a lot. And before we were working in really vertical way that you have a chief and you spend 8 hours a day at your desk. And now it's not like that at all. You can work in the lobby, you can work in the circulations, you can work outside, and people have to meet every day in different ways. So we try to do that in our office buildings. And for example, this one has balconies all around. And the more you go up in the building, you have some terraces which are for every floor. So the core of the building is quite simple. It's a 18 meters depth building, which is very convenient for offices use. At least in France, the system is like that. But we put these outside spaces to allow people to go to meet there. And also we put there the circulations. For fire regulations, we have to put a lot of circulations to go out of the building. And on these terraces, we have outside circulations, which allows us to have less circulations in the building. And our real estate developer was really happy that we could limit the number of circulations inside the building. It makes more square meters. So on the left, you can see these terraces, and on the right, the part which is more like the 18 depth part and the balconies. So this one, we are about to have the building permission in France, and it's going to be built next year. So that's a technical drawing with the columns. We are glue-lamed. And then CLT panels and beams on the facade with the outside isolation. And then on the ceiling of every floor, there is no false ceiling. It's just radiant, metallic radiant with water inside, and that heats the building. And for us, it's very important that we can see the wood inside of the building, especially in office or housing buildings. That's how it's going to be. So the central part can be like that, with really open, or you can close that to do meeting rooms. And on the right part, it's an open space building, but you can divide them and make separate offices. One thing which is important for us is that a building in wood has to be seen from outside, and most of the time you see them when you walk in the street. So we are really careful that even on the ground floor there is a lot of wood, because in France sometimes we do the ground floor in concrete and then we go up with the wood, and that we think is not so good, because there are very important spaces on the ground floor as these kind of spaces, which is actually the lobby of the building. That's an example that the lobby is not here just to represent the image of the firm, but is also a place where you can meet and work and welcome people. That's another building we are constructing now. We are building now in Bordeaux. It's almost finished. Some people here visited it this year. It's in Bordeaux is really a leading city for timber in France. There is a very strong political action to make timber building coming, and they organize a lot of architectural competition, and they ask for wooden structure building. They ask for it. So if you're a real estate developer and you want to do these buildings, you have to do them in wood, and it makes things change very fast now in France. So this one, we've designed it, we've begun to design it 3 years ago. It was a long process because they wanted us to do new techniques and to use French wood, which is quite difficult because the big wood suppliers are more in Austria. And so that was a challenge. So this is the ground floor. We have an atrium in the center, and there will be an open staircase that we have designed with a friend who's called Johan Briand. He's a designer. And in the floors, you have upper floors. You have a U, which is the main office spaces. Then the atrium in the center, and outside circulations for fire regulations. That means that there is no staircases which are surrounded by walls. You are always seeing the lights when you circulate in the building, and we do that because we try to make people use the stairs and not the elevators. And the upper floors are smaller, and you have on the fourth floor a very nice terrace facing the river. So this is the technical drawing with. This one is done with glue-lame column, glue-lame beams, and then there is a GLT floor with a little bit of concrete on top for thermal inertia. And this will be a very, very low energy building, even to heat it. We have done it with a geothermal system. We take the energy from the ground and we put it into the building. And there is a system for night aeration. So in the summer, when it gets hot in the night, there are automatic openings, and it goes inside the building. And the facade is done in wood. Also, we have put a very special wood that is already gray. It has been transformed. It's not going to be when it gets older. It's not going to change. It's going to be as it is when it's new. So that's the structure. So you can see it was a few months ago. And on this one, we couldn't make it to make the core of the elevators in CLT. We tried to, but it made the price very up, and the real estate developer was not okay. So the next one will have, like the one I showed you before, will have CLT core, but this one has not. And so that's the construction site. The facade. And now it's an image from 1 week ago. So now we have the louvers to protect from the sun, which are done in stainless steel. And inside, you can see that we can see the wooden structure and the radiant panel on our here, like the white ones. And these ones are also used for acoustic reasons. So after all these buildings, we were commissioned 6 months ago for a massive project. It's close to Paris. It's in Nanterre. So for people who don't know Paris, so this is the Eiffel Tower, which is pretty famous. And so on the west of Paris, you have this neighborhood called La Défense. It's a little bit like the city in London. And here you have all the towers and offices, etc. So big firms are here. And our land is here, a bit further out. And it's a very nice land. It's one of the last, which is such a big one, empty. And this is a project we are designing now. It will be the largest building construction in wood in Europe. It's 1,300,000 square feet. So there are 12 buildings. And so this is the plan. There will be a very large garden. It's 6 hectares. We keep 2 old buildings that we renovate, but all the other ones here are made of CLT. And so it's a very important project for us. And we took the idea that on every floor, you can go out and you have very large terraces, and you can use the stair to go directly to the garden. That was the first point, the first idea we had, that in all this gigantic office little city, you can always go in the garden, going by outside, not inside. And that's also for fire regulations. So doing that, inside we have open staircases. I'll show you them after. And that's what we have at the end of every building. On every floor, you have that kind of spaces. You can go outside. And we think you can make meetings outside, but also if you have a phone call, you want to smoke a cigarette, you don't have to go down to the lobby every time. And so we think it's really important now. So that's kind of staircases we have inside of the building. And this is the entrance with a lot of, because there will be 5,000 to 6,000 people coming every day in this place. So we have put a lot of restaurants, commercial activities, etc. And so this is inside with a lot of light, and it's quite the same system that the first project I showed you. It's the same real estate developer. It's called WoodWorks. It's a new real estate developer that makes only timber construction. And on this project, they are associated with a big bank called BNP. But it's a very good sign that this kind of bank are okay to put money on this kind of very big project. So there is a little movie now. So now I'm going to show you two projects that we are developing now, which are not timber projects at all. They are concrete projects. But it's just to show you the expressive architecture we are doing now. And the next step for us is to try to do that kind of things really extreme in timber also. Because we think the big market, of course, is for small like buildings from, let's say, 6 to 10 stories high, but it's very important to have iconic buildings. And when people ask you about timber, you can say, hey, there are these things. So to do something less complicated, it should be okay. And so we are doing this project in Nice now. So it's south of France, and that's really the way we want to do new office buildings. So it's the iconic way for us to show that we can put all the circulations outside and very large balconies, even on office building. So that's the new way to work. And so that's kind of spaces you can have. And this one we are doing in Montpellier. We are associated with a Japanese architect called Su Fujimoto on this one. And this is a good example how a city council can have a very crazy building. They own the land, and they said to the real estate developer, you can come and participate to this competition, but we are going to give it to you only if you do something very unusual. And so we found the good real estate developer that was okay to do that. And this is what's interesting about it is that Montpellier, of course, has a very nice weather. It's the best weather in France. It's always sunny. And so we thought it's in the center of the city. It's quite dense, but it's the same pleasure than to be a little bit the same pleasure than to be in a house, but you have crazy views. So it's a 17-story building, and the balconies are up to 7 meters cantilevered. And what you have to imagine in this building is that if you have a 2-bedroom apartment, if you have 1-bedroom apartment, you have 1 terrace like that, 1 balcony. If you have a 2-bedroom apartment, you have 2. If you have a 3-bedroom apartment, you have 3 of them. So it's a completely new way to see housings. And it was a commercial success. They sell the 100 units in 3 months. And the price was 30% more than the market. So it shows for us that there is room for this extreme architecture, and that gives new uses to inhabitants. And this one is in construction now. So we have followed the price. The real estate developer is really happy. He has commissioned us to do other ones, so that's a good sign. And it's not finished, but it's ongoing. And we were courageous enough to go on the balconies, jumping on them. And so that's the last project. It shows, it's a project which is in Bordeaux, this city southwest of France, where the former project I showed you, which is in construction, the office building is. And they commissioned, they had the land also, and they said, we want to do the first 50 meters high tower in timber construction. So they launched a competition asking real estate developer to come and do a 50-meter high timber construction. So that was 2 years ago, and this one we didn't win, so we're not going to build it, but it shows the way we tried to do it. And now we are on new design of this kind. So that was the ask was for a very dense plot with 4 little towers. So what we did is that we put them in a way that you have good views, even if they are quite close to each other. And that we did an analysis of the winds and to protect from western winds, which are very, very strong in Bordeaux. And then on the ground floor, you have a garden, a common garden, and on the top of these buildings, we have put gardens for the people who live here, and we have put bridges between the towers so people can go from one to the others. So that's the views. The cores. So that's the project. So the plans, here you have housing projects with one core and every time 2 or 3 apartments. And what's important for us is to try to do living room always with 2 orientations, like that. And here you have an office building. But as you know, we try to do offices building a little bit like housing buildings, so you don't really notice from outside that they are different. And we also think that for the future, this kind of office buildings, if we want to change them in housings, it's going to be more easy, because sometimes in France you have less firms and you have to transform them, or like there are areas which were with offices and they are not anymore. And so that kind of building we think can be changed very easily. So that's the image. That was 100% timber construction, unless all this little metallic column to hold these very large balconies. And that's a view of the garden. This was the structure. So what was interesting in this project is that we came with the real estate developer and the constructor from day one. So we designed everything with the contractor from the first day of the competition. So we knew the prices, we knew how to make it stand. And this is here a glue lamp with CLT cores and CLT floors. And then you have the facade with metallic panels and these very big balconies with a light metallic structure. Thank you very much.